The rain wouldn't stop that night. Inside a quiet roadside diner, a tired waitress counted her last $12, all she had left for the week. Just then, a soaked biker stumbled through the door, shivering, hungry, and completely broke. Everyone looked away, except her. What she did next with her last $12 would make 60 riders return the next day. Not for food, but to change her life forever. Hailey was 26, working double shifts at a roadside diner that barely stayed open. She lived in a tiny rented apartment, surviving paycheck to paycheck, always one bill away from trouble. Yet her heart never hardened. She believed kindness was worth more than money. The biker, whose name was Logan Reed, thanked her quietly, saying he'd been stranded after his bike broke down miles from home. Hailey offered him a blanket from the lost and found box and refused to take any payment. "You look like you need a break more than I do," she smiled. He nodded, his eyes wet, not from the rain, but from the unexpected humanity of a stranger. As the clock struck midnight, Logan left the diner, promising, "I'll see you again someday." Hailey laughed softly, not knowing how true those words would soon become. The next morning, Hailey came to work tired but content, until her manager scolded her for giving away free meals again. He threatened to deduct it from her paycheck, and Hailey just nodded, too used to being blamed for caring. But that evening, something unusual happened. The faint rumble of engines echoed down the highway, growing louder every second. Hailey looked out the windows and froze. A long line of motorcycles, dozens of them, were pulling into the diner's parking lot. The sound was thunderous, like a storm made of chrome and leather. Customers turned in surprise as nearly 60 riders parked outside, all wearing the same black jackets with a silver wolf emblem. For a moment, Hailey thought it was a biker gang coming to cause trouble. Her heart pounded until she saw Logan step out from the front of the crowd. Hailey was wiping down the counter the next evening when she heard a faint, deep rumble from outside. At first, she thought it was thunder again, another storm rolling in. But within seconds, the sound grew louder, sharper, heavier. The floor beneath her began to tremble as dozens of engines roared in unison. Every customer in the diner turned to look out the window. Headlights flashed through the mist one after another, until the entire street glowed white. Hailey froze. Outside, motorcycles lined up one after another, stretching farther than she could see. More than 60 riders, all dressed in black leather jackets, their helmets reflecting the diner's neon sign. She felt her heart race. Was this a gang? Was she in trouble? Her manager whispered nervously, "What did you do, Hailey?" The door opened with a metallic chime, and the same biker from last night stepped inside. But this time, he didn't look tired, he looked proud. The crowd fell silent as his boots echoed across the diner floor. He smiled warmly and said, "Remember me?" Hailey nodded, confused and shaking. Logan turned toward the riders outside and raised his hand. Within seconds, one by one, they began walking in, the sound of leather and boots filling the room. Each man and woman carried a small white envelope in their hand. Hailey's eyes widened. "What's going on?" she whispered. Logan spoke clearly so everyone could hear. "Last night, this woman gave her last $12 to feed a stranger. She didn't know that stranger was one of us, a veteran, a rider, and a man who'd lost hope." The riders nodded, their faces filled with quiet respect. Then one by one, they placed their envelopes on the counter in front of her. Hailey's hands trembled as the pile grew higher. Logan stepped closer, his eyes glistening. He handed her the final envelope and said softly, "You didn't just feed a biker, Hailey. You fed a family, and we never forget kindness." Hailey opened the envelope, and inside was a check for $48,000. Her breath caught in her throat as tears filled her eyes. The entire diner erupted in applause, but Hailey stood frozen, her soul trembling. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one giving. She was receiving. And in that moment, she realized, kindness always comes back. Louder, stronger, and multiplied. Hailey stood motionless, the check trembling in her shaking hands. Her heart raced faster than the storm outside, and her eyes refused to blink, afraid the moment might disappear. Logan smiled gently, watching her struggle to breathe between tears. All around her, the bikers clapped, cheered, and whistled, their joy filling the tiny diner like music. Her manager stood frozen behind the counter, speechless, guilt written across his face. Hailey pressed the check against her chest, whispering, Why me? Logan stepped forward, his voice soft but steady. Because the world still needs people like you, Hailey. You gave when you had nothing, and that's the kind of wealth money can't buy. Hailey's lips trembled as she tried to speak, but all that came out was a sob. One of the riders placed a helmet on the counter. Black, shiny, engraved with silver letters. Kindness rides forever. Another rider handed her a leather jacket, saying, "You're part of the family now." The crowd erupted again, and for the first time, Hailey laughed through her tears. Outside, the engine started rumbling once more, but this time, the sound was comforting, not frightening. It was the sound of loyalty, gratitude, and a bond that money could never create. As they rode off one by one, Hailey stepped outside into the cool night air. The rain had stopped, but the street still glistened under the golden diner lights. She looked up at the sky, eyes wet, whispering, "Thank you, God. I thought I was alone." From a distance, Logan revved his engine and called out, "You'll never be alone again, Hailey." And with that, 60 bikes roared into the night, leaving behind trails of light and love. Weeks later, Hailey used part of that money to reopen the diner, this time under a new name that carried her story within it. The Second Chance Cafe. The same place where she once struggled to survive now became a home for hope. The smell of fresh coffee, warm pies, and laughter replaced the silence that used to haunt those walls. On the first day of reopening, she stood behind the counter, not as a tired waitress, but as a woman reborn through kindness. Every cup of coffee she served came with a small handwritten note that read, "Kindness never goes unseen." Customers often paused, smiled, and took a photo before sipping their drink. They didn't just come for coffee anymore, and they came for the story. The story of the young woman who gave her last $12 to help a stranger on a rainy night, and how that act came back as a miracle. People began traveling from towns and cities far away just to meet Hailey, to thank her, or to tell her how her story inspired them to do good in their own lives. Reporters wrote articles, influencers shared her cafe online, and yet Hailey stayed the same, humble, gentle, and full of grace. She smiled at every customer who walked through the door, seeing in each face a reflection of the night her life had changed forever. That night of rain and compassion had become her eternal reminder. That goodness, no matter how small, always returns in unexpected ways. As the golden sun dipped below the horizon, its light glowed softly on the cafe's sign. The Second Chance Cafe. Hailey stood by the window watching the world move by, her heart calm and full. She whispered to herself, almost in prayer, "Kindness doesn't just change others, it changes the giver too." And in that quiet moment, she finally understood. The smallest act of love can echo louder than thunder, and sometimes it can change the course of an entire life.